All right, so we're diving into something pretty profound today.
Definitely profound.
Pope Francis's brand new encyclical, Dilexit Nos,
Just came out, right?
dropped like days ago.
Wow.
It's all about human and divine love seen through, well,
An interesting lens, you could say.
yeah, the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Not what you typically expect.
Right. But Pope Francis, he weaves in ancient philosophy, personal stories, even like popular piety
He wants to make it relevant,
for people today.
A
Exactly.
really interesting approach.
Yeah, he starts by talking about the heart.
Not just the organ, though, right?
No, something way deeper. Like he mentions Homer and Plato.
Those guys go way back.
Right. And they saw the heart as this core of courage, the seat of emotion.
Even the soul, in a way.
It's not just pumping blood, it's essential to who we are.
Absolutely. And that's key to his whole point.
Oh,
He's pushing back against this idea that we can just, think our way to understanding reality.
just through intellect alone.
Right. He even brings up Heidegger
Okay, Heidegger.
and Byung-Chul Han's interpretation of him.
It's been a while. Remind me about Heidegger.
Okay, so Heidegger was all about questioning our assumptions about what it means to be.
Okay.
And Han takes that further, says our hearts are just as important as our minds for grasping the nature of things.
So not just logic then.
More than that, it's like there are parts of reality we can't fully get with logic alone.
I see.
Pope Francis says our hearts understand things our minds miss.
Okay, so we've got the heart as essential to understanding, and then he ties that to personal experience.
Right.
He talks about Mary, the mother of Jesus.
Yeah.
How she pondered things in her heart.
Those verses in Luke,
Right, reflecting on everything happening with Jesus.
piecing this incredible story together.
And he uses this word, symbolin.
Beautiful word.
What's it mean?
It means to throw together, literally.
Okay.
But here, it's that process of gathering experiences, reflecting until they make sense.
So Mary's making meaning of it all in her heart.
Exactly. And Pope Francis suggests we all do that.
We all have that capacity.
Our hearts are where we bring together the pieces of our lives.
Okay, I'm a little nervous, to be honest.
How so?
I was picturing something a little more, I don't know, sentimental.
Like follow your heart.
Yeah, but it sounds like Pope Francis is getting at something way deeper.
Oh, absolutely. He's very clear. The Sacred Heart devotion isn't about fuzzy feelings.
It's not about worshiping a body part either, right?
No, it's about encountering the full person of Jesus Christ, divine and human.
To be honest, that whole imagery of the Sacred Heart has always felt a bit, I don't know, strange.
I can see that, why some might find it off-putting,
Yeah.
but Pope Francis addresses that head on.
He does.
He explains that the heart image, it resonates because it's universal.
Universal how?
Across cultures, throughout history, the heart represents intimacy, love.
Vulnerability, yeah.
Goes beyond just religion. It taps into something deeply human.
So it's like a visual shorthand for this bigger concept of Christ's love.
You could put it that way, but he's careful to distinguish. We venerate the image of the Sacred Heart.
Okay.
Our adoration is for Christ alone.
So the image is more like a doorway,
You could say that.
a reminder leading us to a personal relationship with Jesus.
Exactly. It prompts you to go deeper, to consider what that kind of love really means.
Okay, that leads us to what he calls the triple love of Christ.
This gets to the heart of the encyclical, so to speak.
Triple love. Okay, lay it on me.
So there are three dimensions of love present in the Sacred Heart.
3 dimensions.
First, divine love, God's love for us.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, human spiritual love, Jesus' love as a human infused with the Holy Spirit.
Okay, so that's where his divinity and humanity come together.
Yes, and third, human sensitive love,
What's that?
the love Jesus experienced with all the emotions and feelings of being human.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. He's really emphasizing Jesus' full humanity.
He is, and he's saying that Jesus' human heart, with all its joy and sorrow,
Everything he felt.
is a sacrament, a visible sign of God's infinite love.
So we can actually see God's love through Jesus' human experience.
Makes it much more relatable.
It does.
And he brings in some heavy hitters from church history to back this up.
Like who?
Early church fathers like St. Basil, St. John Chrysostom,
I've heard of those names.
they fought hard to defend Christ's humanity against those who downplayed it.
So they fit right in with what Pope Francis is saying.
Exactly. He wants us to grasp that Christ's love isn't just some abstract idea.
Yeah.
It's a real force. It can transform us.
Powerful stuff. It's like we're seeing love through this multifaceted jewel.
I like it.
Each facet reflecting a different aspect of Christ's love.
That's beautiful.
And then Pope Francis takes this turn.
A turn.
Yeah, he doesn't want us just sitting back contemplating this love.
He's all about putting faith into action. Right?
He's calling us to action.
So how does he connect the Sacred Heart to social action?
That's what I want to know. I mean, he's saying, okay, you've seen the beauty of it, now go and do something.
He is.
Oh, how?
So we've been talking about this call to action.
Right, this idea that, Christ's love should push us outwards, make the world better.
But where does it all start?
Well, it has to begin with a personal encounter with Christ's love, right? That's what kicks things off.
You got it.
Yeah.
And what strikes me about Dilexit Nos is how Pope Francis, he really encourages us to embrace the different ways people experience this devotion.
He specifically mentions popular piety.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, sometimes I think gets a bad rap.
I know what you mean.
Like, it's seen as overly sentimental.
Simplistic.
Yeah, like less sophisticated than, I don't know, the more intellectual approaches to faith.
Like it's all feelings, no substance.
Right.
But Pope Francis, he cautions against that dismissive attitude.
He does.
Yeah, he sees wisdom and sincerity in popular piety.
Interesting.
He even brings up the Jansenists.
Jansenists.
Yeah.
Okay, give me the crash course on Jansenism.
All right, so basically, they were known for being super strict. Their approach to faith was very austere.
Okay.
And they really criticized the devotion to the Sacred Heart.
They did. Why?
They thought it was too focused on emotions, sensations.
Interesting.
Thought it distracted from the intellectual side of faith.
So Pope Francis is pushing back against that then?
Exactly. He's saying don't shy away from the emotional aspects of faith.
I see.
Our hearts and minds, they work together to help us grasp God's love.
It's not either. It's both hand.
Exactly. There's that saying, right? The head can only go where the heart has already been.
Perfect example.
And that speaks to this emphasis on personal experience that runs through the Encyclical.
He wants us to really engage with this devotion, not just as a concept, but as a living reality.
He wants it to touch our hearts, transform our lives.
He's not giving us a rigid formula for how to do that, though, is he?
No. He's very open about the different paths to encountering Christ's love.
Like what?
He draws from all these different sources, like Gertrude of Helfta, the mystic. She described hearing the heartbeat of Jesus during prayer.
Wow.
And, of course, Margaret Mary Alacoque.
The visions, right.
Exactly. Her visions helped spread the devotion to the Sacred Heart.
So it's not one size fits all. It's about finding those authentic ways to connect with Christ's love.
Exactly. Whatever that looks like for each person.
And being open to those moments where, grace breaks through.
Those aha moments.
Yeah, you're just like, wow, God is really here.
Exactly. And those moments can happen anywhere.
Not just in church.
Right. They can happen in nature, through art, in acts of service.
In quiet reflection, yeah.
It's about cultivating that sensitivity to God's presence in all things.
That's important, especially in a world that can feel so chaotic and disconnected sometimes.
It is.
But let's get practical for a second.
Okay.
What's the invitation in Dilexit Nos? For the listener, how do we engage with the Sacred Heart?
So Pope Francis offers a few invitations.
Okay, like what?
He encourages us to reflect on our own relationship with the Sacred Heart.
To look at where we're at.
Yeah, and then consider how it can fuel our love for others.
Okay, so outward movement.
Right, and he suggests some specific practices, like the hour of adoration on Thursdays.
I've heard of that.
He goes back to St. Margaret Mary Alacoque.
So is that a requirement to do the hour of adoration?
Not at all. It's an option.
Okay.
It's a potential way to go deeper, but he gets that different things work for different people.
It's about finding what works for you, what helps you connect with Christ's love.
And he emphasizes even simple things, like a prayer, lighting a candle.
Those can be powerful.
If they come from the heart.
It's that inner disposition, the turning towards Christ.
Yes, and that's where Dilexit Nos gets personal. Pope Francis wants us to listen to those whispers of God's love.
In our own hearts.
Yeah, to trust in his mercy, allow ourselves to be transformed by his grace.
He even uses that metaphor, right? Jesus thirsting to be loved by us.
Yes, it shows the relationship goes both ways. Christ desires our love, and when we encounter it,
we find ourselves wanting more of him.
A cycle of love and longing.
Okay, so the heart is where we encounter Christ's love, and that love spills out into action.
Right.
But there's this other concept he brings in, compunction.
Oh, good point.
It seems kind of out of place next to all this talk about love and devotion.
You'd think so, but it fits.
How?
Compunction is that sorrow for our sins, recognizing how we've fallen short.
Right, but it's not about getting stuck in guilt. Right.
No, that can be paralyzing.
It can.
Pope Francis sees compunction as this beneficial sting. It burns away our selfishness.
I like the image he uses, tears excavating hardened hearts.
It is a powerful image.
Yeah, even when we're broken, we can experience God's love.
His mercy, yeah.
And Pope Francis takes it further, says compunction leads to solidarity with others.
Because when we know our own need for mercy, we're more compassionate.
Towards others who are struggling.
Exactly, and he connects this back to reparation.
Which he's redefining, right?
Not just saying sorry, it's about dismantling whatever blocks God's love.
Okay, so we're back to action.
Right, and compunction, that sorrow, it motivates us to do something, to become agents of reconciliation.
So it's not about wallowing, it's about letting sorrow push us towards positive change.
Yes. That's hopeful, even in a world with so much conflict.
It is hopeful. It means our individual actions matter.
They do. No matter how small, they can contribute to a more just, compassionate world.
Wow, this is a lot to take in. I feel like we could talk for hours.
Me too.
What's the main thing you want our listener to grasp from this part of our deep dive?
I'd say it's this. Pope Francis is inviting us to open our hearts to Christ's love.
Let it change us.
Yes, and then become conduits of that love in the world.
It's a journey.
It is, one that starts in our hearts and extends to all of humanity.
Well said, and that outward movement, sharing Christ's love, that's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive. Okay, so we've talked about encountering Christ's love personally.
Right, letting it transform us.
But Pope Francis doesn't stop there.
He doesn't.
He wants us to take that love out into the world.
Let it shape our actions.
He uses this term missionary.
Yeah.
When I hear missionary, I picture like traveling to faraway places.
Yeah, spreading the gospel.
Is that what Pope Francis has in mind?
It's broader than that.
Broader how?
For him, being a missionary isn't tied to a specific role or location.
Okay.
It's about sharing Christ's love wherever you are.
So in our families, workplaces, communities.
Exactly. Online even.
It's about letting that love transform everything, inspire us to work for justice.
For peace.
So it's less about preaching, more about living it out, drawing others to Christ and how we live.
He connects this directly back to the Sacred Heart.
Okay.
He's saying experiencing Christ's love, it should push us outward.
To share it.
He uses this image, the Sacred Heart, as a furnace.
A furnace.
Sending out flames of love into the world.
I like that it captures this idea that love isn't passive.
Right.
It's energy. It's a driving force.
And he's challenging us to be bold.
Bold how?
Not afraid to speak about our faith, our relationship with Christ.
I imagine that's tough for some people.
It can be.
Especially nowadays, where faith is often seen as, I don't know, private.
Irrelevant, even.
Yeah.
But Pope Francis says, find creative ways to share.
Let your actions speak.
Louder than words.
Sometimes the most powerful witness is just living a life of love and service.
Absolutely. Actions do speak louder.
He makes a good point, though. We're not alone in this.
All right.
We're part of a community.
He talks about some inspiring examples.
Like who?
St. Charles de Foucault.
Didn't he end up living in the Sahara Desert?
He did, and it's interesting, he didn't set out to be a traditional missionary.
What drew him there?
He was drawn to a life of simplicity, solitude.
But even in that solitude, his love for Christ overflowed.
It did. He saw Christ in the poorest people, dedicated his life to them.
It shows that mission takes many forms.
Sometimes the most unexpected paths lead us to Christ's love.
And he also talks about Saint Therese of Lisieux.
She never traveled the world, lived a quiet life in a convent.
But her impact has been huge.
Huge. She's a perfect example of how, even in hiddenness, we can be powerful witnesses.
Both St. Charles and St. Therese, they really embody this idea that love drives mission.
Not forcing beliefs, but sharing the love that changed us.
Letting it be contagious.
Exactly.
Okay, what does this call to mission mean for our listener? How do we apply it?
Pope Francis doesn't give a step-by-step plan, but he says, start by reflecting on your own encounters with Christ's love.
What moved you?
What inspired you? And then ask, how can I share that?
Find your own way to be a missionary.
Which might look different for each of us.
Right, and he reminds us, even small acts of kindness,
Compassion.
they can make a difference.
A ripple effect.
We're not doing it alone either.
We're part of a community, the church.
Supporting each other.
And that leads to the Encyclical's conclusion.
Okay.
Pope Francis reminds us, the world needs this love, the love from the Sacred Heart.
Desperately.
He's calling us to be bold, share that love, push back against the things that dehumanize us.
Work for a better world.
A more just, compassionate, interconnected world.
It's a challenge, but it's hopeful.
It is.
This devotion isn't just an idea, it's a source of real change.
It brings everything full circle.
How so?
We started with the heart as understanding.
Right.
And now we see how understanding leads to action, transformation.
This deep dive has been quite a journey.
It has.
I feel like we just scratched the surface of Dilexit Knows.
So much to explore.
To our listeners, I really recommend checking out the Encyclical.
You might be surprised how relevant it is.
Even if you're not Catholic.
As you read it, ask yourself, how is Christ calling me to love more deeply?
How can I be a conduit of that love?
Great questions.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you're inspired to explore Christ's love even further.